Hello, my friends. It's Andy over at the Andy Falco Show, coming to you live from California. It's a Wednesday, 5:30, and got a bunch of stuff to get to you. I have been just, I don't even know what the word to use. Beside myself doesn't sound strong enough. I've been pacing, I've been reading, I've been watching. So many things are happening. You got Atlanta cops that are walking off the job because they know the truth. I've been telling you for the last couple of days about what I thought about the shooting, that it's justified. If you've missed any of those shows, you're gonna have to go back and look at some of those shows. You either go to YouTube or Facebook, the Facebook Live TV show. And just scroll down, you'll find them. They're an hour and a half long, some of them. So I'm going to try not to rehash much of this stuff. I'm just going to kind of hit the points. I got a video to show you that shows you what happens with these kinds of incidents. It's impossible to find the exact same incident, but I found one that's really, really close, and you'll see what happens in these cases. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself because I need to get to my sponsors. I always forget. Make sure and check out my sponsors, please, or else I will not be able to continue these shows. This is what I'm going to be doing for a living now. And I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to go forward and share with you the truth and the facts in regard to law enforcement and what it is we do as law enforcement officers. And so go to today'shappycoffee.com, check it out, get a sample, get some coffee. If you don't like it, return it. But I'm telling you, it is great coffee. It helps with the dopamine and other hormonal issues in regard to you and what it is you need, makes you happy. It helps people. I know that I've seen testimonies where it helps people lose weight. So make sure and check out Today's Happy Coffee. Today'shappycoffee.com. I just want to get to the show, and I hate to rush through my sponsors, but I just want to get you into that. Today's CBD oil, it's the best CBD oil on the planet. It's made by Viseo, one of the top 50 healthcare companies in the world. It's patented. They use liposome technology that allows the nutrients to actually get into your body to allow the CBD to work better than any other CBD on the planet. Go to today'scbdoil.com and pick up some CBD oil. And then we have also our other wellness products with Viseo. So go to today'sviseo.com and check out all the other stuff, skincare, healthy vitamin packs, to energy drinks and whatnot. So go to today'sviseo.com. All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to rush through those, but I just want to get to some of these things. I'm trying not to go past an hour. I have to see if I can get this all done within 30 to 45 minutes. And so I really struggled about which thing I want to go to first, but I think I need to first tell you a couple things, and I know that I have a lot of new viewers that are watching this for the first time. And so those of you that have watched, I'm so sorry, but I just need to go through my background because, again, it's so important, I think, so that people understand that I'm coming from a place of expertise in the sense that I know what I'm talking about. I've been in law enforcement for well over 30 years, 21 years as a police officer, another 15 to 20 years as an expert witness in cases involving wrongdoing by police officers. I often testify against law enforcement. A lot of police officers don't like me anymore. The organizations that either I've created or been president of, they pretend that they don't know who I am. That's just the way things work. All right. And so, it's just what it is in law enforcement. So understand that I'm coming from a place from being a law enforcement officer. I've trained in the canine world, police officers all over the world. I have police dogs that have been working throughout the United States and in Canada and other countries, in Peru and Ireland and all over the place. So I've been involved in this in a lot of different aspects. I've trained thousands of dogs that have bit bad guys. And as far as I know, none of them have ever been brought up on charges. And so I think the way that I train people to use of force, and when I investigate officers that use excessive force, I am fair. And I pay attention to detail. And when it's necessary for me to testify against a police officer because I find that they used excessive force or lied or did something against policy or against state statute or federal statute, I have no problem calling them out. So I just wanted to make sure and lay that foundation first. All right. So with that said, as a police officer, one of the things we're being heard constantly, I just heard it just seconds ago before I went live, is they said, this officer shot Rayshard Brooks in the back. All you keep hearing is that he shot him in the back. He shot. You know why? Because that makes it sound bad. Like it's bad to shoot somebody in the back. Listen, you have reaction time, which is a big issue in this case. When Rayshard turned and sideways faced as he was running, because he can't turn and run backwards very well, and so he's running and turns and fires the darts at the officer. The DA admittedly said the darts went over the officer's head, which means he shot in his direction and the darts went towards the officer and shot over his head. All right. So they're admitting that their dead client, this person who was doing time for domestic violence and violence towards children and kidnapping, this guy that they are saying that shot over their head admits that the suspect, the dead suspect, shot over the officer's head. As an officer, when you see a flash come from the muzzle, in this case, it happened to be a taser, but the officer probably didn't know whether it was a taser or a gun. All he sees is the flash. You can't tell where somebody's aiming. Oh, he's shooting over my head. I'm now not going to shoot him. No, the reaction time is that he saw the flash. You can see it on the video. He sees the flash. He's drawn his weapon. There's reaction time. Reaction time is your mind has to process what it sees, right? The eyes see what they see. Then the messages goes to the hands and the heart and the mind and says, I need to draw my weapon to protect myself, and fires. There's distance that can be made because now the officer's trying to take cover behind the car. The suspect's continuing running, and now you have greater distance. Don't use this BS that he was now further away. He was only about 6 feet away when he fired the taser, which with his arm extended makes him only 3 or 4 feet away from the officer's head. And the distance that he had traveled was the reaction time from the officer to pull his weapon, pull the trigger, and fire, which 2 or 3 steps are taken, which now creates a little bit more distance. The shots go off. Now the suspect turns and gets the shots in the back. It is irrelevant that the shots hit him in the back. It is irrelevant how far he got after he fired the shots. Irrelevant. I'm telling you. You got to understand this. It's also irrelevant how the suspect was acting beforehand. Oh, he was totally calm. This was just a DUI. Oh, they were talking. He was cooperating. He was cooperating until he fought the officers, punched them in the face, and stole the taser. That went from a misdemeanor, a consensual contact, where eventually he would be handcuffed, taken to jail, given a cite, and be released. Although, you know what we also forgot is that he's a parolee. Oh, we forgot that detail to tell you that he was on parole, right? That he was just got out of prison early because of COVID-19. That part seems to be escaping everybody, right? And that is why he decided to fight, not because of George Floyd, this false narrative. Well, he saw George Floyd in a video get killed. No, he's fought because he was a parolee. That's why he fought. I know to you, it doesn't matter. To all of you, the DA, nobody, none of that stuff matters, right? And so here you have a completely false narrative towards all of these situations. So the reason for me talking about the fact that he got shot in the back is I shot somebody in the back in the shooting that I was involved in at the Anaheim Police Department. It was a robbery in progress. The suspects just got through robbing a restaurant. They took everybody's jewels and money, the money out of the cash register, and I positioned myself outside the restaurant in the darkness. I had my gun out, right? And so I have my gun out waiting. I'm getting messages from the cook who was in the kitchen, hiding underneath a table somewhere in the kitchen, reporting to our dispatch what was going on. Hey, we have 2 suspects inside of a restaurant. They're robbing everybody right now, and they're taking all of their jewels and their necklaces and watches and that kind of stuff and money. And they're coming out the east door. It was the east door of the restaurant. And as they were coming out, they came out towards me. I had my gun out. I was waiting for them to get a little bit closer, because the last thing you want to do is say, stop police, when they're too far away. Why? Because they'll run, right? You don't want to chase people that are armed and dangerous. You want to wait for them to get really close, so that the closer you are, you can close distance. And that way, when you have your gun out and you tell them to freeze, police, you're in a little bit closer distance. They're less likely to run. However, I guess I might not have been hiding very well. They spotted me. They dropped all the goods. And they started to turn, and I saw he had a gun in his hand. He's turning and turns his back on me. My thought was he's going to run back into the restaurant. One of the last things I want is a hostage situation. I didn't want him to run back into the restaurant with that handgun in his hand, and I shot. All right, so I shot somebody in the back. You can't make these statements that you just simply can't shoot somebody because their back is to you. Listen. There are all kinds of different situations. You can't stand there on a podium or in front of a PowerPoint and say, well, we shot him in the back. So that's, that's what it is. He's guilty. Obviously, he shot him in the back. No, there's circumstances. It's fast moving. It's quick thinking. It's decision making. There's distance that happens while you're doing all this stuff. I'm so sorry. There's a lot. I see a lot of comments coming out. I'm so sorry. I will try to get to them. Oh my gosh, this was justified. Courtney, Kathleen, thank you for Courtney. Yes, you're absolutely right. Reports are saying taxes was sure there's something deployed twice before suspect took off, rendering it useless. No, no, it's not. The one that got fired was the one from the other police officer. That one got fired. It can recharge, and you'll have another charge coming up. The one that the officer that got stolen, they were trying the contact. They were using there's two parts to most tasers. You got a contact taser, which you press up against somebody's leg, and it has two prongs, and the two prongs make contact with the body, and you hit the button, and now those cause a electric current, which will cause them to be engaged, right, and cause the muscles to be triggered. It couldn't get out. That's when the suspect took it from him. Before the barbs that are fired were fired. So yes, it was used, but it was used in the contact aspect, not in the firing aspect. And that one was taken. That's the one that when he was running away and you see the muzzle flash, you can hear it, you can hear the bang, you can see the muzzle flash. Those are the darts that went over the officer's head. All right. So good question. I'm glad you asked that, Cheyenne. I appreciate that very much. I'm sorry. There's a lot of comments. I want to get to them, but let me get to a video. And I think it's important I go to this video first. This video is going to show you a very closely related situation where you have a suspect that's been stopped for DUI. It's on the side of the road on a highway. And again, consensual contact. You got the sobriety test is given. Remember that the attorneys from the suspect in this case said no sobriety test was given. Yes, there was a sobriety test given. In this case, sobriety test. And again, it looks cooperative. Same thing. It doesn't matter that things start cooperatively, that the suspect is trying to speak nicely. Why? Because they don't want to be arrested. And so they're trying to talk themselves out of it or talk the officers out of it and be nice. And then when it comes time to be handcuffed is when things change. You take a misdemeanor offense that somebody could have easily been handcuffed and taken to jail, and they turn it into a felony assault. Two different things. You need to push aside the memory of somebody talking nicely on video, that they were cooperative. There's a lot of other issues that I explained over the last couple of days that I'm going to try not to go through because it would take too long. But you have a calm situation suddenly rapidly turned into a felony confrontation of life and death. Whether you believe it or not, whether you're watching the video safely at home, go, well, he was just fighting and they should have just let him go. You are not in that fight. You're not the officer who has weapons on his body. He has one handgun on his side. They often have one or two other guns on their body. We have knives. We have the tasers. We have all kinds of other weapons that can be used against us. So please don't tell me what you don't know. You don't know what it's like to get in a fight for your life on the street, and you have a suspect actually overpowers two people. All right, I'm going to show you a video right now that shows a very similar situation where two officers are doing the same thing, giving a sobriety test, and I'm going to let it run. And let me put up this caution really quick. I need to do this to make sure that I give you a warning. So the warning, the contents on this show will be graphic. Viewer discretion is advised. I'm letting you know right now that you're going to see a man get shot. You're going to see two men get shot, and it's not the suspect at the first. You're going to see these officers get shot. And I just want to let you know ahead of time. I would let it be a surprise, but I don't want to surprise you. So these officers are about to be shot in a very similar situation. So let's see what happens when you let a suspect go after they have assaulted you. What potentially could happen? We don't want to wait to see if that happens. Again, and I'm going to get into this right after we watch this video. So let's watch this video so that I can show you exactly what happens in a very similar situation. It's about 2 minutes long, so forgive me. I'm going to let it run out.
Okay. Do me a favor. Come over here. Go place your hands behind your back. What? Stay. Place your hands. Stop resisting! I got him. Keep the taser on. Stop resisting! Fuck. Keep the taser on. Get on your back! Get on your back! On your back! All right. Get on your back! Fucking back! My God! My God! All right. Get the fuck on your back!
Sorry, now I got to repeat everything I said. Sorry, I was muted my mic. The one thing that you have to know about police work, especially when you're getting into fights, is that these things happen. Video of us fighting with somebody trying to stay alive, and then sometimes either they're taking our life or we're taking their life, is awful video. It will never look good. If we win, it looks like we did maybe too much. If we lose, it looks really bad that, so sad we died. But we cannot lose. Law enforcement is not in the position to lose ever. We're always to win, right? If somebody goes to punch us in the face, do we return always with a punch? No, we return with a nightstick or a nunchucks or some other type of striking weapon. If somebody pulls out a knife, we pull out a gun. If somebody pulls out a gun, we pull out two guns, right? And we try to fire first. We try to take cover, or we come out with a bigger gun, right? An M16 or an MP5. There's no that we have to come out with an equal. We always come out with more. And so if we win, it always looks bad. So video in law enforcement never is what it seems. And I found myself in a very similar situation with a kidnapping in progress. I happened to be pulling over a vehicle. I thought it was a drunk driver. When it stopped, all hell broke loose. It was a kidnapping in progress. They had a girl at gunpoint inside the vehicle. She jumps out of the car screaming. They come out with guns. I'm behind my vehicle now, and I'm all by myself. I have three suspects with guns. I have a girl running around the freeway. She's half naked. And I have the newspaper clippings that I could show you if there's any question about what I'm telling you is true. And it is hectic. It is crazy. And there's a lot that goes on in these situations. So here is a situation where the sobriety test and the contact appears to be fine. A fight breaks out. They cannot get control. They use the taser, just much like the case at the Wendy's in Atlanta, right? They're trying to tase him and they drag him. And look at these officers drug him out of the lane, probably both because they don't want to get hit by a car, but they don't also want him to be hit by a car. They're telling him, stop fighting, stop fighting. They end up trying to punch him. He won't stop fighting. In the middle of that, a gun falls out of his hip. Remember what they're saying in Atlanta? Well, they knew he didn't have a gun. How do you know he doesn't have a gun? We can't do that kind of a search prior to an arrest. We can pat down, but we can't check the groin necessarily. We don't find we're not doing a strip search to find all the guns on the side of a road or in the consensual contact. Sometimes we would do a very quick pat down just to make sure there's not a weapon that's obviously in a position to be grabbed by the suspect. In this case, the very same thing were happening. They were fighting for their lives. They eventually got so winded. You get so freaking tired fighting on the ground, using your elbows, punching, trying to stay alive, and you're exhausted. I don't know where it is that these attorneys and the DA just think, well, he was a nice guy. So what if he punched you in the face and told your taser? You should have just let him go. It was all nice up until that point. Yes, it was all nice. until he chose the suspect who's been guilty of domestic violence, of aggravated assault, of torturing his children, of kidnapping, this parolee that didn't want to go to prison. It was all fine until he didn't want to go back to prison. And that's when it all starts. I'm really not sure what you guys don't understand, those of you that think that he's guilty and that the officer is guilty and that he should go to prison for murder. He was protecting himself. We don't know what's going to happen. These officers kind of let this guy get up. He got to a gun and he shot both officers. The only thing I don't know is if the officers lived. That I do not know. Let me see if I can find out on the place where I found this. I actually found it on Twitter. Oops, sorry. Sorry. I know that sound's probably coming across. I apologize. Hold on. I got to see if I can find out whether it says drunk driver out on parole, pulled over by highway patrol. Officers tried to handcuff him. He resists, fought police, shot one officer, gets away. It doesn't say whether the officer lived or not. All right. So there's that. Let me also, just so you don't think that I'm talking out of my arse here, I got another law enforcement officer from DC. His name is Ted Williams. A black guy from Washington, D.C., has a history. Let's see what he has to say about these charges, these 11 charges. I'm going to talk about those in just 1 second. Sorry, can't talk and click all the buttons that need to be clicked at the same time. All right, let's make this a little bit bigger. Let's hear what he has to say. I'm not going to play the whole interview, but this is right after, as you can see, right after the 11 charges are brought against Rolfe, Officer Rolfe. And some of the charges are just obscene and just so stupid, but they're trying to cover their ass. I'm going to get to that part in just 1 second. So let's listen to what Ted Williams had to say if you missed it. Oh, of course. Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. I got to refresh that page. For some reason, it's frozen. Give me 1 second. I think it's worth it to hear, again, another perspective. And I want to make sure that you don't think that I'm just making all this crap up because of me being a police officer or what have you. But it's always important, I think, to show that I am not alone. Here we go. I'm going to try this one more time. It looks like I got it working. All right, technology.
Appear to be piecing a lot together, Ted. What do you think? Because he had made, that is, the attorney had made a very big deal of the fact that this was something that was unnecessary, that this was something that didn't have to be done, that even though he was, brandishing a weapon, or appeared to be a stun gun, a weapon, taser, that in the Atlanta police code, it is not deemed as such that someone fires that on you. It is not deemed necessary to respond the way this officer did. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are, Neil, we're watching, unfortunately and sadly, a miscarriage of justice here. First of all, let me say that I believe that the DA here, Paul Howard, overcharged Officer Rolfe in regards to this very sad death of Mr. Brooks. Let me try to be direct with you. What an officer can do, if a deadly force is being used against an officer has a right to use also deadly force. That's Georgia law. Now, what happened here was everything was beautiful and peaceful and calm up until the time that they got ready to arrest this man. And when they had tried to arrest Mr. Brooks wrestled with him, grabbed one of the tasers, and took off. The officer, Rolfe, is right behind him, and he's running behind him. He has his taser out. He moves his taser from his right hand to his left hand. He then pulls his service revolver, but this is why this case, I believe, these officers will not be found guilty. It's because at that stage, unfortunately, Mr. Brooks turned and shot the taser at the officer. And let me just say something. I've heard all of this crap about a taser is not a deadly weapon. As a lawyer, I can tell you, I have represented 2 people against police officers who have used tasers, and those 2 people that I represented died. They died as the result of being tased. A taser is a weapon. A taser can be a dangerous weapon. And when you look at the fact, and what troubles me about the overcharging is that they had a felony murder charge, so they had to have an underlying charge. And that underlying charge was aggravated assault. And one of the charges is just not going to stick whatsoever. And that is that when Rolfe pulled the trigger of that gun, that a bullet went in the direction of someone that was a bystander. And they charged that. And that you would have to show that Officer Rolfe intended to shoot the bystander. So what I'm upset about here is
And so, yes, he was so right in so many areas. I wanted to address what he just talked about, in that you have these other people that are out there in the background, and you have to be careful when you're shooting at somebody that you know what your background is. But listen, there was a lot going on. It was dark. The background, at least from what I can see from the position of the one camera, is fairly clear. Nobody else was shot or killed. Sure, what you do is you end up paying people off, pay them $10,000, $100,000. That is an unfortunate situation that can happen in a ricochet, right? Something could have hit a cement parking a curb or something and ricocheted and hit a car and maybe gone. And these things happen. I'm telling you, police work is not perfect. Trying to arrest somebody does not always go well. Usually when you're handcuffing somebody and they fight, that means something else is going on. They got a warrant out for the arrest. They're a parolee at large, or they're a parolee that is looking at maybe additional time back in prison and they don't want to go back. There always seems to be something else. When somebody fights, when you're arresting them for a simple misdemeanor, and when they fight, that means that something else is going on. So that's one in regard to the vehicle being hit with one of the bullets. I'm sorry, but that is bad and it's unfortunate, and we're sorry. And that is what happens. All right. And so but you don't charge the police officer. The overcharging, somebody commented here that there's all these overcharges, is exactly what I told you about what they should have done in the other case involving Floyd. Is that they were charging him in the beginning with this murder 3, when I was saying they should have charged him murder 2 and then assault on a color of authority, and then you pile on. I've talked about pile on. Sometimes piling on means you don't have a good case, and you need to actually begin to put all these other charges on there so something will stick, so you can make the community happy, so you can make your haters happy, so that you can make your community happy. All the things that I think is really happening here, where Officer Rolfe is a scapegoat. What is a scapegoat? Let's look really quick and see what a scapegoat means and why I decided to name this scapegoat. A scapegoat is a person who is blamed for the wrongdoings, mistakes, or faults of others, especially for reasons of expediency. The expediency of finding as many charges as possible to lay on Officer Rolfe is a sign that somebody's worried about their job, about their future job, about maybe some charges that are coming against them. I believe the DA has some kind of a funky background where he's absconded with some money that he was entrusted with and put it in his own personal account. You got the mayor who was hoping to be vice president of the United States with Sleepy Joe, the guy who's hiding in his basement. You have a bunch of people here who have some hidden agendas that, for whatever reason, they've decided that Officer Rolfe is going to be a scapegoat to make them look better, to help people forget that they got all these other things going on. The mayor also has some issue with money, with some campaign money that got spent somewhere else, right? You got other things that are going on here that I think they found their opportunity. Thank God, Officer Rolfe killed this parolee who he got 7 years for domestic violence, for violence against his children. This loving father. Let's look at his charges. Let me go ahead and bring those up. Right, we got simple battery, we got cruelty to children, we got false imprisonment. We got family violence battery. We got possession of stolen property. We got interfering with the government on government property. I'm not sure what that's all about. And serving 7 years, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, another 7 years, and 5 years. This was not a good guy, right? Oh, this family man, this poor guy, he was just fell asleep in the driveway of the Wendy's. What are you doing picking on him? You should have just let him go. He has no history of violence. He's a perfect citizen, right? And I know that we can't necessarily shoot somebody because of their past, but I'm telling you, this gives you a reason to understand why he was fighting, right? You can't shoot somebody because they were maybe he's now a born again Christian and he got his life straight. Let's just say that. But he decided to fight with the cops. When you fight with the cops, you don't get equal use of force. That you punch me, the cop punches back. That's not all. No, you get something much higher, right? You have to go a step above. That is what law enforcement is allowed to do. You get punched, you come out with a striking weapon. You get stabbed, you come out with your gun, right? I know I said that before. I'm just repeating that this is not one of those things where when somebody turns and points a firearm, whether it's a taser or a handgun, you see the muzzle flash as a police officer from only 4 feet away when it occurred. And actually the barbs go right over his head, as the DA said, right? Then I think you have the ability to shoot. One last thing I want to show you is that when I'm talking about this expedience to cover up somebody else's wrongdoing, is that look at this. This is going to be interesting to you, I think. And I found this because of April Roga sent it to me, one of the viewers that's off and on, and I really appreciate her being on all the time, one of my good friends. And she found this, and this really interesting what we see here. You got the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. The Georgia Bureau of, I'm going to read the whole thing to you just so you kind of understand. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation was requested by the Atlanta Police Department on Friday night, June 12th, to investigate an officer-involved shooting at the Wendy's restaurant at University Avenue. We are in the process of conducting this investigation. Although we have made significant progress in the case, we have not completed our work. We have not completed our work. Our goal in every officer-involved shooting case we are requested to review is to complete a thorough, impartial investigation before we submit the file to the respective district attorney's office. The GBI was not aware of today's press conference. That was the one that happened earlier today. This was posted 3 hours ago. The press conference before it was conducted. We were not consulted on the charges filed by the district attorney. Despite today's occurrence, the GBI will complete its mission of completing an impartial and thorough investigation of this incident, and we will submit the file once completed to the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. Why were they in such a hurry to bring these charges to the community? What is going on? Did they not want to wait for the Bureau of Investigations to tell them that they had no case, that they couldn't make these charges? Were they jumping ahead in order to get these to have this show that they put on, the show to show that they're doing something so that nobody continued to look at whatever it is the DA was doing and the mayor were doing? Is that possible? Do you think that would happen in our world today? Really, I don't think it's any secret that they jumped to conclusions. They jumped to these charges. They added all these extra charges that were just bogus. They're talking about, and I again just saw just a minute ago that they are bringing up this fact that I don't know if it's a fact. They brought up this charge that the officer, after he shot the suspect, this parolee, and they shot him, that he kicked him. It is not unusual for law enforcement with their hands on their gun to stand over somebody they just shot to push them to see if they have to stop fighting. We do it all the time. I did it several times. Sometimes when we have somebody kneel in front of us with their back to us and they put their hands, interlace their fingers behind their head, what we do is we'll push them. Or sometimes we'll tap them with our foot, and we'll do that to see if they're going to spin to try to attack us. Again, I've done this several times. I did it on a case with a suspect who was only being arrested for petty theft from Albertsons at La Palma State College in Anaheim. He was a 6'5" man, much bigger than I was. I had him come out. I had him kneel with his back to me. I had him cross his feet, as he was being kneeled, and I had him interlace his fingers behind his head. When I pushed him or kicked him, if you're going to at least see a video, it's going to look like I kicked him. When I pushed him, he stood up and turned, and the fight was on. I pushed my button, the dog came out, and the dog bit him. All right. It's a good thing I kicked him because that tested whether he was going to attack me or not. This is what it has done. I'm telling you, law enforcement enforcing the law, arresting some people is not pretty. And if you see video of it, it's not going to always look good. That's just the way that it's done. I don't know how else to tell you. My job is not to die and to not for people. My job is to go home to my family while enforcing the laws of the state and the United States of America. And it is not my fault that somebody decides to spin on me and to attack me as I'm trying to arrest them. It wasn't this officer's fault that he got attacked during the arresting process, that the two officers that tried to get him into custody were fought off and their taser was stolen. It is not their fault. They tried to retain it. The other thing is what I talked about is they cannot use a carotid restraint. Remember, the chokehold has been outlawed. It has been outlawed for many, many years. And now they're talking about like it's something brand new they're talking about. But we have not been able to use the chokehold. The other thing that we probably should not be using is the carotid, not because it doesn't work and not because it's safe. It's because it's questionable whether we'll be charged if we use it. It is a great hold. The carotid restraint, which is the one on the left, is the best thing you can do to avoid having to shoot somebody. Because what happens? You can knock somebody out. You can lay them on the ground. You can get them handcuffed before they wake up and before they know anything happened. The chokehold clearly is dangerous. The chokehold should not be used. But when we cannot use the chokehold, and it may be questioned whether we use the carotid hold, which in both incidents, the one in Atlanta and the one I showed you in the videotape, if they could have used the carotid restraint, they could have choked that guy out, knocked him out, got him handcuffed, and he would have woke up and everybody would have been alive. Everybody. The officer wouldn't have got shot on the video that I showed you from Twitter. The suspect wouldn't have eventually been shot. I think he got shot later on. In the case of Atlanta, Mr. Brooks, suspect Brooks, the felony suspect Brooks, the parolee Brooks, he would still be alive today if we could have used the carotid restraint. But because there's some confusion about a chokehold and a carotid restraint, they didn't use it. And now they only had the one option left, and that was to shoot him and take his life. That's because people that don't know anything about law enforcement are making decisions that they know nothing about. The carotid restraint is one of the safest, most effective holds a police officer can use when he does it effectively to take somebody to custody. A chokehold is dangerous because you're going to crush somebody's airway within their esophagus. So this is all a bunch of crackpot BS. The fact that they're saying that the other officer stood on him. We often stand on somebody's hand so that as we're trying to get them handcuffed or determine the safety to be able to move forward for a brief moment, just again, so they can't move their hand and put it on their waistband. They're claiming that he stood on his back. I don't know. I don't see any video of that. But again, standing on somebody's hand or somebody's arm in order to make sure that they're not going to be rapidly moving to grab a gun is, again, something that's done before we can get somebody handcuffed. So that is not unusual. These charges are crazy. They're just crazy, right? And they're not taking a bunch of other stuff. And there's a bunch of other charges that were just nuts. And if I were to go into them, we could be on this forever. All right. So understanding again that I just want to make sure that you understand that it is a complete it's just overstepping. It is using the officer as a scapegoat. All the claims and the words they're using are just wrong. This should not be tried in the press right now is what they're doing. They're trying to make themselves look good. They're trying to get the focus off of the wrongdoings that the DA has in his background, the mayor has in her background, and that she wants to be vice president of the United States. And this is a rush to judgment. They haven't allowed all of the investigation to take place yet. The Bureau investigation again says you didn't even tell us you're going to do this, right? They didn't want to tell them, because they would have told them, don't do it yet because you don't have all the facts and you haven't taken a bunch of things into consideration, is what my feeling is. So this is crazy. It's going to be bad. When these officers are found not guilty, it's going to be worse because of everything that they've done. All right. So thank you, Dale. Thank you. I appreciate it. Andy, is it possible that the police department would fake charges just to keep the officers safe and prevent riots? Not in this case. No, I don't think so. That is a good point, but I doubt it very much. Yeah. Yeah. How do people not see through the BS? I don't know. I don't know. They're still on now. The family came on and talked about, we saw how, and again, these are the victims of the suspect, right? The victims of the suspect now coming on. He was such a wonderful man. Again, I was a family crimes detective for a couple years over there at Anaheim, and it is unfortunate thing that you can see happen all the time, where the women are beat by their husbands. Arms are broken. They got black eyes. They got bloody lips. They got stitches. And they come in a couple days later and say, you know, I don't want my husband arrested. It was my fault. I upset him. And so I don't want to press charges anymore. And then you go, you want to listen to your 911 tape where you called the police department and said, my husband is trying to kill me. Would you hurry up and get here? If you don't get here, he's going to kill me. That call that you made, that's the thing that you're now saying that your husband didn't do, right? Now he's a loving husband. Now you love him and you're trying to protect him, and you're saying that you did that you caused all that to happen. And this is not unusual. It is not unusual for the victim of violent crime, especially when it's perpetrated by their husband or their boyfriend, or the person that provides a living, right? That they all come back and say, oh, he was fantastic to us. I don't even know what happened that night. Obviously, it was a mistake that he punched me and that he hurt the children and all that other kind of Schlotsky's deli that they come up with. It is just really crazy. Yeah, so the victims of his wrath are now coming out and saying what a wonderful person he was. I think I respect cops more now than ever. Thankless job too. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All matter to you. I appreciate that. All right, let me see if I missed anything. I have the Atlanta. Let's talk about this too. One more thing. I'm so sorry. I got one more thing, and here is another thing that I think that they are ashamed of over in Atlanta. Let's take a look at what it says about their crime in Atlanta. Do you remember the other day when I was talking about Minneapolis, about how they're dismantling their police department and they're defunding all the stuff that we're hearing in the news right now? And I pointed out that it has a 4 crime ranking. A 400 means it's safe, and Minneapolis is a 4. And I was like, wow, a 4 is horrible. Like, how bad does a crime have to be in a city for it to be a 4? Like, you can't walk down, you can't safely walk anywhere in Minneapolis at night without worrying about being mugged or murdered or raped, right? Even men, right? Because it's so bad. When you have a 4 is horrible. It must be really bad to be a 4. Well, let's take a look really quick and see what Minnesota or what Atlanta is. Let's see what Atlanta is. This is going to be interesting to see this. It's got to be like a 10. It's got to be a 15. No, it's a 2. Atlanta is a 2. Are you shitting me? What? You are kidding me. Number of crimes, 3,000. Violent crimes, 3,978. Property crimes, 24,791. It's crime rate per 1,000 residents, 7.99. 40 property crimes. Almost half of the 1,000 residents in Atlanta will be the victim of a property crime or just a crime. Over half will be a victim of any crime in Atlanta. 57.76 per 1,000 residents will be the victim of a crime, violent or property. Are you kidding me? Does this not just speak to what I've been talking about for the last several weeks? And I just need to come back to this. It's just Democrats have lost their minds. Democratic voters, really, listen, you got to do something about this. Can you not see that in Atlanta, New York, Baltimore, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, all being led by Democrats, all have the worst crime index of most of the cities in our country, are all run by Democrats? When you talk about Black Lives Matter, not one Black Lives Matter person ever gets on and says, you know what, we should do something about these mayors and governors that govern these areas where we have nothing but crime. Our ranking here in Atlanta is a 2. And they've been there for decades and they've done nothing. And they're saying, well, Donald Trump, he's only been a president for three and a half years, less than 3.5 years. And it's his fault that you've been living in complete crime-ridden, nasty shitholes. That doesn't bother you, Black Lives Matter? That the areas where you have the biggest crime index, where you are the biggest crime, poverty, lack of education, fatherless homes, that all that's happening in a Democrat-run community, that doesn't bother you, Black Lives Matter? That's what tells me it's a fraud. Black Lives Matter is a fraud. because your focus is on police. Let's look at another statistic that I brought up the other day. I might as well do this while I'm at it. What the hell is that you have, let's do the math. Is that when you're looking at something that's so minute and blaming all of your sadness, all of your deaths, all of everything that is wrong with this world on law enforcement. But out of 50 million calls a year, there's only 50 times where you can say somebody that was unarmed was killed. Again, unarmed doesn't mean they weren't violent. And so that's 0.001% is what your focus is on right now, that cops are horrible, that they're the worst thing, that they need to be dissolved, that they need to be gotten rid of, because of 0.0001% of the time somebody is unarmed, and most of those are white people. Only 9 of those 50 are black people, and you're destroying an entire industry, the law enforcement industry. You're destroying it and saying that it's the most racist, systematic problem in our world right now. And you're saying nothing about Democrats who cause you and force you to live in these shitholes that for decades have never done anything about it. Really? And if I go to the medical thing and say, but this is okay though, right? 35 million procedures, right? 35 and 35,000, almost 35,500. We'll just round it up. And you have an error of 251,454. That's a 9.5, right? That does that not tell you how great law enforcement is? That we only make really, I mean, it's less than that when you're talking about violence. It's less than 0.001%, because of those 50, not all of them were nonviolent. Somebody's life was in danger. That's why the person was killed. They just didn't happen to have a gun, or they just happen to not be armed. Right? That's what all this is about. And now you got this officer who's a scapegoat for a mayor, has done nothing for the city of Atlanta. Nothing. She has probably caused more death with her ineptness and her inability to actually run a city. She obviously cannot run a city. Right? She wants to be vice president of the United States. You're going to elect her as if you elect her as vice president, you guys are much dumber than I thought. Much dumber. I mean, it's bad enough that you're thinking about voting for Biden, right? That's bad enough. You got a guy who's has dementia that you're going to make president of the United States. That is pretty dumb. But then you're going to add a mayor possibly who has a crime index of 2 and has joined a series of mayors and leaders in the city who has done nothing for Black lives ever. 8 years of Obama, he did nothing that Donald Trump has done for the Black community. Donald Trump in 3 years has done more in 3 years. He did more in his first year as president for the Black community than Obama did in 8 years, along with Biden, by the way. Biden did nothing except for ride Obama's coattails to hell is what he did. All right, I'm getting hoarse, and I hope I made my point. That, again, the officer is simply a scapegoat to the wrongdoings and the lackluster leadership of the city of Atlanta. He should not be charged. He should actually get his job back. In the end, I hope he sues everybody personally for the injustice that has been done to him and the rest of the law enforcement there in Atlanta. Again, I understand that many officers have walked off the job in Atlanta, and they should. This is a sad day for law enforcement. Other officers should walk off the job. I would never have said that in the past. I think it's too dangerous for a police officer right now to do their job. If they get in a fight and the other person dies and they're Black, you're done. You're going to either be fired at minimum. You're going to be you're going to be charged with aggravated assault, manslaughter, or a murder. If you do anything right now to protect yourself to stay alive, or protect anybody else for that matter, I would not go in service. I almost said 10-8. I would not go 10-8 as a police officer tonight or any night, as long as this is going on. If you have to protect yourself and you kill somebody and they happen to be Black or Mexican, anything other than white, you will be charged with murder, manslaughter, or fired at the least. Sorry, I may have said something wrong in my excitement. I'm going hoarse because I'm so excited and so pissed right now. I'm so angry. I would appreciate this if you would share this video. It's only because I think more people need to understand what is really going on in our world right now. And you can hate me if you're not American. If you're not American and believe that these officers should be charged. If you're not American and you are okay with people taking over Seattle. If you're not American and aren't upset at what the Democrats have done to some of these once great cities. San Francisco used to be a great, beautiful city. It is now a shithole. People are crapping on the streets. They're pissing on the streets. They are giving drug addicts drugs, and they're giving them alcohol. And they've increased their homelessness by 300% since the beginning of COVID-19. That is what a Democrat-run city is doing. That's what a Democrat-run country will look like if you vote Democrat, if you don't vote these people out. I am so crazy serious right now that I just don't even know what to say. It is madness. Thank you for my shirt. Yeah, Led Zeppelin. I decided to keep it on. It's the only thing that's kind of kept me calm today is looking at my Led Zeppelin shirt. Led Zeppelin, great band. I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you for watching. And oh shoot, I got to get my son to karate. All right, my friends, I love you all. Just spread the word. And those of you that are not saying anything, I understand why you're not, because you can get demonized very quickly in this world. But we have to start speaking up. So I would encourage you to finally start to speak up. We have to save America before the Democrats take it down, just down a road that we may never recover from. All right, that is it. I'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye.